Well, let me introduce them. We have a guest today, Baljeet Malhotra, who is from TEEJ Lab, or TEEJ Lab, who will talk about APIs and effective API governance, which is, in fact, the main subject of what this company does. So take it away, Baljeet.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with this group. Just for my own understanding, I've been in a lot of seminars, so I assume this is also one of the university seminars. But what's the background of this this group? My apologies. Please ignore my ignorance. Anything that can help me understand about this group so that I can tune in into my seminar accordingly.
Sure. This is a group of students and faculty, generally in the computer science and electrical or computer engineering area. We have here, I see currently here, we've got people of all of those forms. We've got graduate students, we've got faculty members, and we have outsiders as well. So you can assume a computer science background for this talk.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. So let me start with a quick introduction about myself. I'm founder and CEO of TEEJ Lab. Before TEEJ Lab, I was a VP of research at another open source security company, Black Duck. Before that, I was with SAP. And before that, I was with academia. I did my PhD at the University of Alberta, postdoc at the National University of Singapore. My specialization was applying data management techniques to manage the sensor data, so-called IoT now. Been an adjunct professor at the University of British Columbia, University of Victoria, and a few other schools. Very actively involved whenever I can with graduate student supervision as industry advisor, or sometimes thesis and master's PhD thesis advisors as well. We have an agenda, and I just want to manage the expectations of this audience. I do not intend to teach any specific technology or any specific API specific programming. However, what I want to do is share some industry trends. I've been into this industry for last 15 years or so. And there are some trends that are shaping up the digital economy around the globe. So I'll share some of those trends and perhaps share some inspirational stories, and also for some grad students who are on the call, we'll share some of the tools or resources that are available that they can use for their career enhancement, for their job opportunities or whatnot. And of course, I welcome questions from faculty members as well as students as well for any open-ended research questions that I'll share with. So let me start with the stories of these three great companies. If you look at the history of IBM, SAP, Google, one thing which is common between these companies is their specialization in data management problems. If you look at the history of IBM, IBM has been existing even before 1935. But why 1935 is important is this is the year when they actually took a project to manage 26 million social security numbers of US taxpayers. Now, this may not sound a big deal today, but back in 1935, it was indeed a big data problem. Likewise, if you look at Google and SAP in particular, their journey started with building a financial data management system. Google, as you all know, they gave PageRank algorithm, and the idea was how they can index the world of world of web pages to mine this data and surface the information that could be useful. Again, a big data problem. if you look at the technologies themselves, either it's Google search engine, Facebook, LinkedIn, they are all data intensive technologies. More recently, if you look at autonomous cars, a lot of sensors, a lot of geodata, all coming together onto a single platform to provide, transportation services. Quantum computers, I'm not an expert, but again, huge capabilities. I'm in Vancouver in Canada, so we have a local company that produces quantum computers, and NASA was one of their customers, so an early success story by them. Again, these all great technologies. It's all about data crunching. Now, let me share another trend. A lot of trends, but I'll put all the pieces together, I promise. Um, if you look at the growth of software applications, if you look at the graph that is on the left-hand side, you see millions of applications, especially in the last decade or so. We are tracking roughly 500 million applications in the next decade or so. Now, let me give a quick pause here. I know there are a lot of numbers I'm sharing, but let me pose a question to the audience. Where do you guys think these number of software applications are coming from? Any questions? Any guess? Any?
Well, some are just posted on GitHub, and many come from the Free Software Foundation.
Yeah, great answer. I was looking for that precise answer. Open source. Industry a decade or so ago has completely transformed with open source. The 96% number, which is on the right-hand side, that represents any application you pick, including commercial enterprise applications. 96% of those applications contain some open source. And whoever answered that question, open source is the main contributor behind these software libraries. Unfortunately, 67% of those applications are affected by some vulnerabilities. Now, this is not surprising because inherently open source is open in nature. So just like a developer can access it, hackers can access it and exploit it, and basically contributes to those vulnerabilities. Now, this is not necessarily a terrible situation. Why? Because this is still very healthy. Somebody writes a code, puts it on GitHub, somebody takes it, finds vulnerability. So this is a healthy ecosystem where software gets better and better. Linux Foundation, Apache Foundation, a lot of GitHub. Last count we had was back in 2018. We were looking at least 2 million projects. This number has grown quite significantly since then. But again, the point is open source. Let me share another trend. If you look at these trends, and again, this is the latest is by 2020. These numbers were produced by Gartner. And here, what we are seeing is, so far I discussed, how data management companies have grown, how data technologies have grown, how software applications have grown or are growing. This trend shows how cloud has expanded or cloud is growing. Just the last year itself, there is a $250 billion investment into different cloud, either infrastructure, software applications, native applications, or security solutions focused on cloud. So what I'm trying to say is, all these trends, they are pointing towards something really important that is happening in this space. But this talk is supposed to is about APIs. What all these trends, another question, what all these trends have to do with APIs? Again, if anybody has any idea, would like to share, I encourage participation, so please feel free to answer.
Well, first, can you define what you mean by an API, please? Not everyone here might know that.
Sure. Well, APIs have been existing, since 70s or even earlier, I believe. Application programming interface. These are processes that connect, different resources locally. But what I refer to here is actually web APIs. So, application programming interfaces, um, you know, even in your local computing, one process needs to talk to another process, or resource needs to talk to each other. Application interfaces are the way to connect those resources or processes. So in this context of growing applications, growing data, growing cloud, what's the story here behind APIs? Any guesses?
Well, I can certainly answer that for myself. This is Raphael speaking. I've got a project which has a fairly extensive web uh, place, and I use a lot of JavaScript plugins. I use jQuery, but beyond jQuery, I use lots of other things that are built on jQuery. Is that an example of what you're thinking about?
Absolutely. And to be more precise, what is happening is data and software are coming closer and closer to each other. So a lot of companies, they are moving their data into the cloud. And of course, software has become SaaS, software as a service. And a lot of companies are taking that journey because the traditional model of shipping software, through DVDs or other channels, download, managing them, managing IT infrastructure to maintain those softwares. There are a lot of inefficiencies in that system. The fact that you can put your software into the cloud, and instead of shipping your software, you allow organizations to call that software as a service, is what we are talking about here. And since data and software are living together and more closer to in the cloud, the ability for the software to crunch data and create different services is what we are talking about here. So because of because of these different innovations, either in the AI space or IoT, all these data are potential, has potential value for people and organizations outside your own organization. And that's where these APIs are playing important role. You might have heard of another expression, microservices. So they go one level above APIs, but essentially we are talking about exposing different technical and business functionalities through APIs, which could be rooted in usage of data or different processes that are available as a computing resources in the cloud. Now, I tried my best to put those pieces together. Now, another question, just to see, to spike your interest in this area. What do you think? So we all agree, software applications are running into millions, a lot of data crunching technologies, cloud is growing, billions of dollars of investment. Companies like AWS, Google, Microsoft, they're all building different APIs. Now, the question to audience is, what is your guess? How many APIs are there and by who? Any guess?
Well, I use about 100 different ones, and they're all open source.
Wait, any other guesses? Okay, so here are the numbers. So as of today, we are tracking thousands of those web APIs that are publicly available. So you can the simplest example I can give you is Google Maps API, Twitter APIs, Facebook, LinkedIn APIs. So these are some of the names that you might be familiar with, but there are a million or so more that exist, but we do not necessarily know them. Either they are hidden behind the firewalls, or they are publicly available, but they are access control, so we can see them, we can make them, we can call them, invoke those services. And believe it or not, this trend will continue. So it's not going to stay at 50,000 or even 100,000 in the next decade or so. it is our intuition and belief, and the research has shown that these numbers will grow into millions and perhaps billions, because every IoT device, every AI solution, your wearable, your coffee mug, your autonomous cars, your cell phones. I mean, cell phone is already having hundreds of APIs embedded in them. They are making different calls right now, but these APIs will grow even further from there. Now, here is a piece of research that my team did. The figure on the left-hand side represents, we wanted to see some empirical evidence if these APIs are growing, as you mentioned, that you invoke these services, either you write a Java client or you write a JavaScript code, but essentially you need to write a small piece of code to invoke such a service, right? So let's say you are building a mobile app and you want to use a navigation service. You're not going to build maps from scratch. You may call Open API Maps or OpenStreetMaps or Google Maps or other kinds of map services by just invoking those services. And the graph that is on the left-hand side that represents, we actually scanned roughly 2 million open source projects that were available on GitHub. And the evidence we were trying to collect were, we wanted to see if these APIs are increasing, we should be able to see the evidence in those software calls. And indeed, we found these interesting results where there is some kind of war is going on between these big giants. And you can see why. AWS and Google, which are traditionally SaaS companies, unlike Microsoft, which was not a SaaS company 20 years ago, pure enterprise company, but they have slowly transformed into cloud company where they're providing, with their Microsoft Azure cloud, different APIs, APIs that do image processing, APIs that do speech processing, APIs that do natural language processing. All kinds of different innovations are being created, and they want these APIs to be integrated with different open source projects, because that's where they get to connect with the entire other systems where they can create value and perhaps monetize their services. We also compared the growth of APIs with the growth of software libraries themselves, and we found that these APIs are growing at much accelerated rate compared to the software libraries. That was another research that my team did. If you look at the different kinds of APIs, just in the research and innovation space, just in the academic environment itself, there are tons of APIs that could become very, very useful resource for your research purposes, academic training purposes, or even assignments and things like that, where you would like to train your students on cybersecurity concepts or compliance aspects, or even for benchmarking and comparing your research with some of the state-of-the-art solutions that might be publicly available. So these are some of the great resources that are available. I'll do my best to give some live examples and give a quick demo, and so that you can access these resources and enrich your training and research environment. Now, as I promised, these are some of the resources that are mentioned that are exclusively available from us. We have a community platform that is available on for academic researchers, students. Of course, we are a for-profit company, so there is an enterprise version as well. But this community version, API discovery, if you go, you can sign up, you can access all these different APIs I'm talking about. You can search them, you can investigate what these APIs do, and perhaps make use of them, collect data to do your investigations and other aspects of your research and academic activity. We also have co-op positions. We would love to collaborate on certain research initiatives. We are a global company, but currently based in Vancouver in Canada. We do have office in the Bay Area in San Francisco, but that's mainly our business office. We have an office in India and Singapore as well, but these are mainly our business development office. The internship opportunity is available for Canadian students, students who are in Canadian universities, simply because of visa sponsorship and all that. To keep things simple, there are certain obligations if you hire a student from a US university, but nonetheless, that doesn't stop us from collaborating, giving access to the platform, exchanging data and knowledge to enrich your research or enrich your other activities that you have. I also encourage you to look for other resources that are mentioned there if you're looking into API economy space. Now so this is all good. Let me give a quick pause and see anybody has any questions so far. Okay, if no questions, I'll just continue. Now let me share some of the career advancement opportunities from a grad perspective and also research opportunities that exist from an applied research perspective in this API economy space. Now this is picture that is still evolving, but APIs are really good resources to connect people, tools, and processes together in an enterprise world. Pretty much APIs are the glue that connect different resources of an organization. The fact that you're using Zoom here right now is actually certain API calls are being made to enable different sign-up processes and whatnot. At the enterprise level, uh, companies are looking at managing their APIs, and there are certain key attributes in which not only they need skill set, but these are also some of the areas in which technology is evolving quite fast. Uh, Academia is playing a catch-up game to solve some of the very interesting problems in these spaces. So let me spend 2 to 3 minutes on this slide to explain from a career advancement perspective or even from a research perspective what those opportunities are. Now I try to portray a picture in which I mentioned that the APIs are growing within organization at a global scale as well as within organizations. Uh, these already run into a single organization, could easily run into hundreds and thousands of APIs within one single organization. I've even seen cases where one single product makes 5,000 different API calls to achieve different business functionalities or technical functionalities. Now, one very important problem that enterprises are trying to solve, and that's where we as a company, we play a role in the market to provide the visibility into their API ecosystem. Now, there are a lot of reasons why they don't have this visibility as of today. Because as I mentioned, imagine a situation in Microsoft where there are thousands of developers and there is a lot of open source usage across their different products and services, or even Google or other organizations. A developer downloads a library from GitHub, not knowing there could be certain API integrations that could expose certain legal and security risks to the organization. These products are being shipped, so that there are a lot of risk that happens. So if you do not even know your APIs, then how do you manage security? How do you manage compliance? Now, just to tell you the fact, these enterprise applications could grow into millions of lines of codes. And if you put collectively together hundreds and thousands of software applications around an organization, this could easily run into billions of lines of code. So how do you figure this out? So there is a lot of research is being done including us into this space to bring that visibility to the organization. Now, if you're using these APIs, APIs are like your meter. So just like you consume electricity, you consume water, APIs are also like services that you consume, and each call could cost you some money. Depending on the nature of the solution, depending on the capabilities that API provides. If it's a payment API, perhaps each dollar costs you 1 cent or something like that. I'm just making this up. The point I'm trying to make is when enterprises are consuming these APIs, either they're giving APIs as their digital products for to be consumed by their customers and partners. They want to manage cost. And there are a lot of interesting problems in this space where they're looking for expertise to solve the cost management issues. There is a, okay, so 5 minutes left, so I'll try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. If you look at the compliance side of things, similar problem, licensing issues, because a lot of APIs are becoming open APIs, but open APIs does not necessarily mean that you don't have obligations. Free resource doesn't mean you don't have obligations. And trust is very important, because if APIs are making important decisions, especially if these APIs have AI-driven intelligence, how do you trust them? What's the underlying data model and whatnot? So without rather than giving you a slide presentation, let me switch to a quick demo here. So this is the platform I was talking about, where you can go sign in using this community platform. If you go to apidiscovery.com, you will see the button. You can come sign on. Let me show you what kind of investigations you can do. So let's say if you want to see Twitter APIs, what's are available from Twitter, you can see what this API does. Looks like I was signed out, so I will log back again. And if you're looking for different APIs, you can search by different industries. Here we are listing APIs by different industries. These are all available resources that you can use. Not only you can see what these APIs are by which vendor, as I was trying to show the Twitter example, you can see what these APIs do. So let's say I'm a researcher. I'm trying to build a natural language processing solution by which I want to do sentiment analysis. I want to consume Twitter feeds or LinkedIn feeds or Facebook feeds. This is an API that you can use to see what kind of tweets come from Twitter platform. So this API is already integrated. You will appreciate the fact that I don't need to write a line of code to, at least for the investigation. So here I made a call to this Twitter API where I'm looking for COVID-related tweets. So this is a Twitter API call that I just made. This was my input to the Twitter API, COVID, and these are the responses that came back with those tweets, that query. So you can see that here, some of the tweets are coming in, and this is a way you can collect some of the data from a compliance perspective. I can do PI analysis. I can do security analysis on these data. I can see where these, let's say you are a company that is required compliance with GDPR, HIPAA, other aspects, so you want to be careful. So I'll do a quick pause here and leave 2 minutes for Q&A and see if anybody has any question. There are a lot of interesting scenarios you can explore, but happy to give a quick pause and see if anybody has a question that I can answer right now.
Let me ask, if there's a particular facility that I don't want to write myself, but I hope that someone has built it. Usually what I do is I give it a name and I then invoke Google and ask for it. Do you have a better way of finding APIs that I might use than just doing a Google search?
Absolutely. We are Google of APIs. So we are not generic Google, so we are Google of APIs. So in our community platform, we have indexed thousands of APIs, and we are constantly updating this knowledge base. So you can search those APIs into our platform. Now, I must manage your expectation. Not every single API on the planet is already indexed. So that's where we are building technology and curation process where we can be the place for APIs. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, but a lot of APIs are there that you can search in this community platform.
Thank you. Other questions? We have a few seconds left. Hank?
I'll ask one. So, well, in general, are these APIs all using standard formats for communicating data back and forth? For example, I'm assuming that you're not counting an API that would be something that takes a wrapped executable or a disk image and runs it on another machine, right? You're talking about things that are wrapped as JSON or something like that?
That is correct. Most JSON is a common format that these APIs are using, and APIs are built for machine-to-machine communication, right? So they need to have some common language. So JSON is popular, but we still see some old technologies like XML. Even there could be different technologies by which APIs are built. For example, REST APIs, GraphQL, and other. So various technologies are there, but we are trying to unify them into our platform.
Great. Well, we are out of time for this. I'm sure that if people have questions, you can get in touch with the folks at TJ. And I didn't ask you before, Baljeet, but is it okay if we have recorded this and if we publish the recording?
Yeah, that's fine. If you can please share that recording with me as well, that'll be great.
Sure. It'll be on our scheduled webpage, which you have access to, but I'll send you a note also.
That'll be great. And just as a last note, what I tried to explain today was API economy is important. If you're not paying attention, pay attention. There are a lot of opportunities from employment research perspective. This is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to us. Happy to answer any questions that may come up later. Thank you very much for the opportunity again.